My name is Queen Marable Bass Scarborough, and I am the owner of Scarborough and Hargett Celebration of Life Center. Hargett Funeral Home was founded in 1871 in Kinston, North Carolina by Joseph Croom Hargett. The two founders for Scarborough and Hargett, the first, of course, is Joseph Croom Hargett from Kinston, North Carolina, and John Clarence Scarborough, Sr., who was born in Kinston, North Carolina as well. As I think of Mr. Hargett, he was born in Kinston, North Carolina. He was a very outgoing spokesperson and citizen of that particular city. Folk respected him really, really well because he was an entrepreneur. He founded the first funeral home for blacks in Kinston, North Carolina. He was also a merchant in that city and well respected for the roles which he played in those two positions. He met Mr. Scarborough as a young boy and played a vital role in his upbringing. He founded or presented funds or provided funds for Mr. Scarborough to attend school, and he actually referred him for other job offers in Kinston during that time because it was a problem for blacks to acquire viable employment. So Mr. Hargett was really a role model for Mr. Scarborough. And I might add that he provided funds for the renowned training school in New York City for Mr. Scarborough. Mr. Scarborough was the first black to attend that school and graduate in 1905. Well, as I reflect on that, there were several turning points. Turning points as it relates to customer satisfaction, employee relations. We even have had several major challenges with movement of the company. I don't know of any other funeral home which has had to move in probably 7 years within a short period of time. But the first funeral home for Scarborough and Hargett was located on Chapel Hill Street. The second movement was for Main Street. Then the company moved to Pettigrew Street and was there for approximately 40 years. Moved to 306 Roxborough Street, then it went to Fayetteville Street, and now we are at 309 North Queen Street. And other challenges, of course, that I think we've had have centered around the times. You have to keep abreast of the trends that are in the market. And I think we have done a fairly good job with that, in that we've always participated on the local, state, and national levels of our professional organization, which is a plus for us. As a matter of fact, Mr. Scarborough was one of the founders of the North Carolina Funeral Morticians Association. I think it's important that we dwell on other trends that are happening in the funeral industry, as well as services that are being provided by Scarborough and Hargett. I think it's important that we keep up with the best practices, and it's important that we keep abreast through our local organization, our state organization, and our national organization. And for the most part, we have always participated on all levels ever since I've been a part of Scarborough and Hargett. And of course, the previous Scarboroughs who were a part of the company did likewise. As a matter of fact, Mr. Scarborough was one of the founders of the North Carolina Funeral Directors and Morticians Association. His daughter was the first Black licensed funeral service director in North Carolina. And of course, Skippy was the 36th national president. And I think you only acquire those titles because you've tried to keep up with what's happening in the market, and you've affiliated yourself or associated yourself, may I say, with the appropriate personnel who have served as mentors and role models in the profession. And also, I think it's important that we change our websites based on the times that we find ourselves in, and particularly now with the COVID, many of our clientele are not able to have services in their churches or whatever, so it's important that we have the latest equipment to provide live streaming, whether it's going to be at our setting, in our chapel, in the lobby area, or wherever the families may choose to be. But we've got to be up with the times. We've got to personalize and provide whatever services our clientele indicate to us that they wish to have. The principal value for Scarborough and Hargett is a dignified service in a sympathetic way. And that came about with the first funeral home in Kinston, North Carolina in 1871. And it is a guiding factor for us even today. It's a way of life. It's a principle that certainly we can never forget. I would like for Scarborough and Hargett to be remembered by its name. If you stop and think about it, it has a ring to it, Scarborough and Hargett. Scarborough and Hargett has been in this area for 150 years, and so there are very few people who are not aware of our name. So I think we will continue to promote Scarborough and Hargett Celebration of Life Center, as well as the motto, which has been around since 1871. There's no need to change something that doesn't need to be changed, and it has worked for us through the years. Has a ring to it, it's a way of life, it's a part of our everyday operations. My most memorable occasion, I might say, in the funeral industry. There have been many, but I think the one that leaves a lasting impression is our service of remembrance, which we recently held. And it provided an opportunity for family members and friends to gather, even though we are experiencing COVID, and many of us have been in for long periods of time. But we provided an atmosphere where our family members and friends could join together in an open area, and it was conducive for social distancing. And we had a wonderful celebration, and the whole purpose was to let our families and clientele know that we've not forgotten about you, even now. And we did the celebration for those families for the last 5 years. So it was a big affair, and it, in my opinion, was very, very successful. It was a lively celebration. We had music, we had live entertainment, we had ministers present who provided words of comfort, and we had other spokespersons who gave tributes to their deceased loved ones. And so I think it was a memorable situation because it allowed us at the funeral home an opportunity to revisit those families whom we had served and to let them know, no, we've not forgotten about you. And it provided an opportunity for us to provide aftercare, which is an important element in the funeral industry. So we all came together as one, not to be saddened, but to be uplifted by each other. And it was such an overwhelming responsibility, but believe it or not, we're still receiving compliments. Folk are still calling, sending thank you notes to us for embarking upon that service of remembrance. And that is something that Scarborough had planned to do. I think it had been done previously many years ago, but we wanted to reinstitute it because that was something that Skippy had wanted us to participate in. And I think it went over really, really well, so well that we plan to continue it from now on each year. The challenges that our business has had to overcome, we've moved several times, and anytime you relocate, that presents a problem because it's almost as though you're starting all over again. Many people think that you're going out of business, so it's important that you make sure you have the appropriate information provided to your clients and to the community as a whole, that no, you're not going out of business. It's just a matter of time for regrouping. We've had challenges with COVID and being able to provide the quality of service that we would like to provide, but we've managed, and at the end of the day, I think our clientele knows that it is a stressful time, but we're doing the best that we can to make sure that they say farewell to their loved ones in an excellent manner, a dignified manner, even though it's not the most conducive time to do such. As I think upon Durham and providing services in Durham, Scarborough was one of the first funeral homes who came here and has been around for 150 years. And I think it's important that you develop relationships with people. And the founder was a very personal kind of guy, compassionate. He was into people, and not only did he provide the service with the funeral industry, but he was actively involved in the community. He was one of the founders of Mechanics and Farmers Bank. He served on the board for 60 years. Can you imagine? 60 years on one board. He organized the 1 o'clock club for black businessmen. He was the first black to run for city council. He was known as the dean of the black business, just on and on. He was in Omega Psi Phi, he was in the fraternity, actively involved in his church, St. Joseph's AME Church. And the one thing that sticks out really in my mind is the fact that Mr. Scarborough did not dwell upon his family. He was looking out for the community. His wife, his first wife, passed at the age of 37. And so what did he do? He decided in her honor to purchase the old Lincoln Community Health Center and turn it into a nursery school so that unwed mothers would have a place to take their kids and they could find employment someplace. Back in 1925 is when it was started. Can you imagine any black person doing such? He's not only dwelling on the fact that he's lost his wife, but what can I do in her honor? And then he convinced the next wife, his second wife, to run the operation, and it lasted for 90 plus years. So he was a community spokesperson and involved in the community, and I think that's how you continue your business, because you can't be selfish and not give back. And truly, he definitely was one for giving back, with compassion, with dignity, with professionalism, all of that wrapped in one person. I think we who are now a part of Scarborough and Hargett stand on the shoulders of giants, and it behooves us to continue the legacy of the Scarboroughs and to move forward. in whatever positive manners we can. And we can only do that through communication with each other, attending the national conventions, and any of the other services that are provided to the funeral industry. I think it behooves us to tap in on all of the sources that are available to us to move forward. And I think we have young people who are with us now who are in a position to carry the business. And so we don't have to necessarily worry about the legacy, because I think there are folk in place who will keep the fire burning and carry the torch. And it's an honor for me to serve in the capacity as owner of Scarborough and Hargett. It is not something that I had ever dreamed of, but certainly I consider it an honor. And I do continue with excellency in providing the service to the citizenry of Durham.